weather, 35 degrees at 93.5, 1590 WAKR, and indeed, time to go to film school. Bring in Film Study Professor Joe Fortunato. All right, and we're going to go back in time today. As a matter of fact, it was this date, 1955, that this movie was released, and I watched it for the first time probably 10 years ago. And it's just a terrific flick. I'm going to let Joe get into it, but it's really well done and a breakthrough movie for certainly who he went on to become an iconic actor in Hollywood. But let's bring in Joe Fortunato to kind of tell you the story on today's movie. Joe, good morning, my friend, and take it from there.
Good morning, Ray. Good morning, everybody. And yeah, I'm really glad we're doing this movie today. And you kind of teed it up for me. It was released this day, 70 years ago, so the 70th anniversary. The film is Marty from 1955, directed by Delbert Mann, written by the great Paddy Chayefsky, stars Ernest Borgnine and Betsy Blair. This was the first movie to win an Oscar for Best Picture that was produced by an actor, Burt Lancaster, who doesn't appear in the film. So it was produced by Hecht Lancaster, that's Burt Lancaster's company, and he didn't appear in the film itself, but he was in the theatrical trailer as co-producer to introduce the movie to the audience, kind of to boost it up a bit. It was nominated for 8 Oscars. It won 4, including Best Picture and Best Actor for Ernest Borgnine, Best Director, Best Screenplay. So the real big ones that year. And for those that don't know the story, and probably a lot of people don't, because I do think this is somewhat of a forgotten film. It's a story of a middle-aged butcher and a school teacher who's sort of given up on the idea of love. They meet at a dance and they fall for each other. That's it. That's the story. It's very simple. In fact, this is sort of almost the poster child for what we might call a small movie. It was the only film in history that the producers spent more on the film's award campaign than they did on making the movie. And at 90 minutes long, it's the shortest of all the films that have won the Academy Award for Best Picture. It was shot in 16 days, which is incredibly fast. And film historians have sort of credited this film with demonstrating the viability of low-budget, independently produced films in the U.S. That would become a staple outside of the big budget studio films. They knew that those kind of films were being done in Europe and stuff, but they didn't know there was an audience for them in the United States, and there very much was. Another part that makes this sort of, again, I'm using air quotes here, a small movie. This was a remake of a TV play, a remake of Marty in 1953, where Marty was played by Rod Steiger. And this is also the first Best Picture to have originally been written and produced as a TV play. So again, a lot of sort of quirky little historical facts. The film only cost a little over $300,000 to make and generated over $3 million in domestic box office, which makes it one of the most profitable return on investments ever made. And it was such an unexpected box office hit for United Artists that they had to order 200 additional prints just to meet demand at the time. This is one of the first of 3 Academy Awards for Best Screenplay that Paddy Chayefsky won over his storied career. And like I said, I've got some more stories, but I'll just pause for a second to let all that sink in.
Yeah, Joe Fortunato, film study professor, going back in time with Marty, released this day, 1955. And I know you got a lot of other things, and Ernest Borgnine, terrific in it. Joe, let me ask you this. You're a film study professor. When I watched this movie, I thought really solid, really liked it. But as a film study professor, what makes this movie so strong?
The story and the acting and the writing. I mean, that sounds cliche. It's like, okay, that's everything. But, when you have a great writer like Paddy Chayefsky, and you have an underrated actor like Ernest Borgnine, he was always cast as like heavies and bad guys and tough guys and stuff.
Yeah.
To have him in this sort of, everyman kind of role was unique. And like I said, the story is just so simple and wonderfully told. In fact, that kind of teased me up to this next thing here is Delbert Mann, the director, had no idea who to cast in the role So he asked his friend Robert Aldrich, another director, and he immediately suggested Ernest Borgnine. And man was skeptical because of what I just said, that he didn't think that was gonna work. But when Ernest Borgnine read for the part, he moved both the writer and the director to tears. And when Borgnine had finished his read through, both Delbert Mann and Patty Chayefsky knew that they had found their Marty. Now the female casting wasn't quite as smooth. Betsy Blair, who played Clara, was almost not permitted to do the film because of a Hollywood blacklist issue. And that's a story for another day, a terrible part of our history and Hollywood history.
Yeah.
However, Gene Kelly, who was her husband at the time, basically blackmailed United Artists and Heck Lancaster, the production company, into casting her at the last minute, threatening he would never direct or star in any of UA's or Heck Lancaster's production if she was not cast in the role. So, basically Gene Kelly strong-armed them to get her into the film. I already said it was the first Best Picture winner to have been based on a TV program, but it's also the feature directing debut of Delbert Mann, and he was the first director to win a Best Director Oscar on his debut film. That wasn't repeated until many, many years later in 1981 when Robert Redford did the same for Ordinary People in 1980.
Joe Fortunato, looking at the 1955 movie release of Marty, and I know Joe mentioned this in the outset, it went on to be the Best Picture in 1956. So Joe said kind of a sleeper movie, one that's maybe put on the back burner because it's so old. But if you haven't had a chance to go back and watch this, really recommend it. It's a terrific flick. Joe, anything else you wanted to throw in there?
No, I think I've covered it today, but like I said, I'll echo what you said. You said sleeper. Don't sleep on this one.
Yeah.
This is, like I said, it's only 90 minutes, so it's a kind of a quick film. And, if you find it, I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy it. It's one for the heart. All right.
And Joe, before I let you go, anything going on over at your website? You've been out and about a lot lately. What do you got going on?
Nothing new on the horizon in terms of some new film schools, although I do have some dates that I'm talking about for the future. So as always, go to joefortunato.net to look up the latest, greatest. I am still continuing doing guest spots on the Twilight Zone podcast. We're rewatching classic Twilight Zone. So if you're a fan of that, go check out joefortunato.net and you'll find the links to that and any past things that you missed that you might enjoy.
Terrific. Joe, thanks as always for the time. Always look forward to our Friday visits, and we'll do it again next week.
I look forward to it. See you then.
All right, my friend. Joe Fortunato, he's the best film study professor, and he joins us each Friday here for Film School here on 93.5, 1590 WAKR.